This mother had left her young to fight alone, but the same could not be said of Lord Eivor as he leapt to his son's side. It was Lord Eivor's mighty blade that took her head, but the fight was won together. Arlo had found the reason his friends had fled. The taunting shrieks revealed that this was Baron Frostavik, son of the Darkwing who took his father, and therefore a perfect target for his revenge. His foe was beaten, but seeing what had been inflicted on Hilda and Krunk, Arlo's need for vengeance was only growing. More bottles lay outside the forge, which was otherwise as quiet as every other dead thing that haunted this place. The pile of bottles was large, even for one who drinks like a merman, and it seemed to be breathing. Arlo was amazed the merman could swing his hammer, let alone see who he was hitting. A couple of thumps on the head soon brought him to his senses. Something else came his way. Tumbling down the temple stair, Arlo was met with another horror. The head of the smith. It was Arlo now who took up the battle cry. Arlo tried not to think of how many friends, old and new, lay dead. He still had more to do. Rita and Ruby were free, but without their father, there was little for them here. Arlo offered them a new home at Winter's Edge and a forge to continue in their father's footsteps. The mermaids were grateful and said they would find their way to the keep once they had laid Ron to rest. The webbing was thick and tough, but their blades soon cut them to ribbons. Short Tongue sent the terrified frog toward Bogmire Forge. Another villager freed. They too headed for Bogmire, and Arlo wondered how many more frogs it could take. A dank and unsettling place. It had to be the Queen's lair. Arlo wondered what his father would say if he could see him risking his life for frogs. The Cailspinner Queen was dead, and the frogs were soon at work rebuilding the village. The warden was sure mammalian-amphibian relations would be forever changed. Lay unmoving, another death on his conscience. The culprit stood before him. Arlo did not have his father to aid him. This time he would fight alone. As they came to the top of the ruins, they saw Little John. His smile at the sight of his father was the last he ever made. In a flash of bad teeth, his young life was ended. Robin's rage was terrible. He charged at the Darkwing, unleashing a hail of arrows. Together, they defeated the beast in a fury that sent all other bats from the ruin in terror. Robin was bereft. It was meant to be a simple hunt. He could not understand these flying abominations. Arlo offered what solace he could. Tuck was at Winter's Edge, where Robin could take some rest. Arlo could hear the terrified squeaks of the villagers chained inside. Only the Darkwing General had the key, and she would not hand it over alive. Arlo needed no more reason to kill her. The villagers were safe for now. Arlo asked if they would help at the farm. The bug milk needed to flow again. The Night Eyes circled the shrine. As Arlo looked closer, he saw Lorenzo, blood pouring from his arm. This strange cult of owls were no healers. Cultist defeated, the Elder drew something from his cloak. Lorenzo's arm. He swallowed it whole. Arlo soon wished that had been the worst of it. No Stealh Claw, but an attack nonetheless. A band of warrior frogs harassing the village blacksmith. Their eyes lit up at the sight of Short Tongue, only they called him by a name which we need not repeat here. Short Tongue and Arlo returned the insult, and with more than words. The blacksmith was glad to head to Bogmire and safety. All should have been silent in the blacksmith's wake, but Arlo was suddenly aware of a squelching of mud around them. The Stealh Claw was here. They had won this round, but they could not leave it at that. Frog and Rat agreed to hunt the Stealh Claw to its lair. From afar, the villagers seemed lifeless, lost in battle or to the cold. But up close, the truth was revealed. They were training dummies. It was a trap. The assassin was vicious, but Frog and Rat held their ground. Injured, the attacker fled, but Short Tongue was not about to let him escape. With the assassin defeated, Arlo breathed a squeak of relief. But Short Tongue was not done. He needed to know who had sent them. The warlord sat surrounded by enslaved frogs and laughed at the pair's demands for their freedom. He had a surprise for his guests. The stench of the dungeon hit them as hard as its floor. A floor that started to shake, and from the shadows emerged the largest Coadcor that Arlo had ever seen. Rat and Frog slayed the beast. its bloated corpse sinking slowly into the mud. Arlo felt a pang of regret. It had been a slave as much as the others. Glubba's tyranny had ended. Short Tongue offered the frogs a home at Bogmire Forge. Together, he and Arlo had freed the Rift as well as the frogs. Perhaps this would be an era of peace for both. It was eerily quiet at the ruins. Tuck had everything ready for the trap. It only needed Arlo to toss the blood fruit into the cooking pot. The stench would be sure to attract the beast. They only needed to wait. A high-pitched shriek pierced through Arlo's dreams, and soon the flapping of wings was upon them. The camp leader raised his war horn. Its unearthly screech seemed to stir the very air into fury. This was not the wind, but the beating of leathery wings. Leader was defeated, but they had to warn the rabbits. Darkwings were on their way. Old Kazak had sent one of his strongest generals, Necromancer Gouraz. His defeat would rob the bats of a great weapon. The warren was safe in Rabbit Paws once more. Grey Ears swore that if the Warden of the Wastes ever called for help, the rabbits would answer. Doug was no match for Arlo's superior skill. Reggie could already see this would be a tournament that they would squeak of through the ages. Was a veteran too, used to fighting monsters and darkwings with ice under paw. Denis did not compare. Now the crowd cheered for him. well matched. In stature and skill, there was not a whisker between them. They shook paws in truce. No rat could doubt Arlo's worth now. Reggie said to meet him by the docks. Together, they would wipe out the Dark Wings once and for all. Together, they would attack Mount Cauldron. Outside the village walls, the wind turned ice cold. The ground shook, and from beneath the frozen tundra burst the giant ice worm. The ice worm had escaped for now. Arlo knew he could not rest. This creature would return if he did not finish his hunt. Arlo pursued the great ice worm to the peaks of White Whisker, and in the shadow of Mount Cauldron, it fell at last. The rabbits of the warren were safe. Fish still flapping on the ground, but no sign of the fisherman. The culprit soon revealed itself. A rearing frost death march. The rabbit was hanging on by a whisker, but before Arlo could save him, a beast was on him. Arlo was amazed at the ingenuity of moles. This one immediately put the creature's blue blood to good use, offering a hearty reward for the warden's bravery. Arlo found the ranger was already locked in battle with the Slither Scale. He would not survive long fighting alone. The young ranger was a fierce fighter, but no match for the Slither Scale. He barely thanked Arlo for helping him in this fight before he took off, seeking another. Arlo could not leave him to fight alone. There was no stopping him until the Slither Scale was defeated. The Slither Scale's lair. It would end its tyranny here and now. Too late. The nest was a writhing snare of Slither Scale. If any escaped, who knew how many would fall prey to them? Arlo would not let that happen. The blaze destroyed the last of the nest, but Arlo had no time to rest. The Slither Scale had returned. With the Slither Scale defeated, the forest settled into tranquility once more. Arlo braced for an onslaught of tiny, deadly feet, but the second nest was empty. As he started to destroy the nest, he felt the fur on the back of his neck stand on end. Arlo understood now how one beast could feel like an army. He wondered if he would get a bonus for felling this giant as well. The giant death march was fast, but Arlo's tracking was faster. Just in time, as it had already found a victim. The villager was grateful for the rescue. They had been collecting herbs at the ditch opposite the village when the death march attacked. It still had business there, it seemed. Death March had made its nest here. When the villager disturbed it, the giant creature chased them away in fear for their young. These night eyes were transporting freshly butchered kills. The owl folk of the Golden Forest had forsworn meat generations ago. These were cultists headed to the feast. A full cart of fresh meat. This much meat surely meant the whole cult would be at the banquet. At the totem shrine, the scene was set for a bloody red banquet. If Arlo had any say, it would be their last meal. The smell of the beast's dung hit him as hard as the one who made it. Arlo wondered if he could fight while holding his breath. last of the quills fell clattering to the ground. The backstabber was defeated at last. But from the center of the cave came a faint squeak. Sheepbug's pungent scent makes them easy to track. The few that were left were terrified. Arlo had no sooner realized who the culprit must be, and it was upon him, a mudwyrm of the deep. The mudwyrm turned and sped away, but Arlo followed. Perhaps it would lead him to the cow grub. The cow grub mooed, lying helpless at the center of the nest. Arlo would have to deal with the mudwyrm first. The field was too empty. Arlo followed a familiar scent. Blood. The body of the farmer missed him by a whisker. The winged beast was coming for him. The beast was injured, but Arlo could see its trail of smoke. At its end, he could finish what he started. The beast had another farmer lifeless in its talons. This would be its last. It had fled again, seeking its nest. It would not have long to recover, as the warden was soon on its tail. Nestled among the eggs in the bird's nest was a farmer, and still alive. No doubt meant as a snack for the hatchlings. Inside the castle, they found themselves in the chef's store. Before they could be disgusted at the contents, they had to take care of the chef. moved in step, a flawless dance of blood and vengeance. Neither knew that their own blood united them, but perhaps, just then, they felt it. Arlo found Rita battling the Darkwing Smith, but the Smith's mighty hammer soon overpowered her. Together, Arlo and Erica fought the Darkwing Smith. The fiery heat at the heart of the mountain burned hotter than any forge. They entered the huge throne room. They finally set eyes on the foul, laughing figure of Count Kazak, sat on his icy throne. Bertel kneeled exhausted before him. This pained the warden more than he could explain. Kazak left his beast to fight them. He had a king to kill. Arlo and Robin fought with all they had, their hope driving them on. Burial chamber revealed both tales were true. A treasure hoard, and guarding it was the ancient Draugr Karat Bluefang. a fearsome warrior, now laid to rest. More importantly, Arlo had found his treasure. Tracking the beast revealed to Arlo that the farmers need not worry about their livestock, as for now, the Sky Scorcher had bigger prey in its sights. Now that the beast was injured, the sheep bugs were a prized snack. Arlo knew he needed to stop the Sky Scorcher before it barbecued the whole flock. Upon tracking the beast to its nest, Arlo wondered if he had made a mistake. But he soon realized that it was this monster bird that was mistaken. The egg in that nest was no monster bird egg. The Sky Scorchers had been busy scouting the Golden Forest for a meal. Arlo knew he needed to stop them before they were able to nest and lay eggs.
Although there was no nest, it was clear that this Sky Scorcher was preparing a meal for its soon-to-hatch offspring. Although Arlo was too late for this owl, he was determined to protect Nestminster. The cultists defending the Scorcher's nests were clearly looking for a new leader. Arlo would kill 2 birds with 1 stone today. The stench of the Coadcor's rotting body had drawn Arlo to the area, but it seemed like it had also attracted a hungry Sky Scorcher. As soon as the Coadcor eye hit the ground, Arlo knew he was in for a fight. Arlo wondered if it was him that was now being hunted. Arriving at the nest, Arlo was surprised to see a Coadcor, especially as they had become a favorite meal of the Scorcher. As the Coadcor scoffed down one of the eggs, it became very clear why it had been lured in. With the Sky Scorcher vanquished, Arlo toyed with the idea of destroying its last surviving egg. Deciding to keep the egg, Arlo was sure it would be useful in the future.
The icy wind bit at his fur as he emerged on the peak. He saw, silhouetted in the mist, Count Kazak, and in his claws he held King Reggie, dangling over the edge. With a shriek of victory, the Count let go of the king and seemed to melt into the fatal mist. They flew into battle. The Warden and the Count's weapons clashed, echoing across the mountain. The Count's corrupted body fell heavy on the ground. Arlo rushed to the edge, calling for the king, but the only answer in the mist was the icy wind. The war was won, but Arlo could not feel the victory. He barely noticed his friends join him. The Fellowship bowed their heads in honor of their brave king. The tale of this war would be as much of loss as of winning. They returned to the Crimson Keep in near silence, each with their thoughts. There would be no victory parades. Arlo heard a commotion ahead. In the throne room were raised voices. Bertel stood in front of Reggie's throne, holding the crown, asking who should now carry this burden. Denis barged forward to claim it. He was brother of the king. It was his by birth. Robin stepped forward and proclaimed that Arlo was rightfully king. Without him, there would be no kingdom to rule. He had proved himself on the peak. He was not alone. Leaders of the clans stepped forward and echoed their favor of the warden. Arlo objected. He had no claim here. Bertel slammed his staff into the floor to silence the rising voices. He had a secret to tell. Arlo's father was King Rattus. Bertel himself had delivered him as a child to the warden. He had a claim, if he was willing to take it. Arlo felt the truth of it, and the paw of destiny seemed to push him forward to take his place upon the throne. Bertel placed the crown upon his head. The weight of rule was his now. Denis had been forgotten in the shouts of joy from the clans. He raised his blade and swore vengeance. It was his birthright, and he would reclaim it from this usurper. Arlo set aside the warden and became the king. A new dawn broke over the land, bright and clear. The king sensed it would not last. The promise of his half-brother would surely mean war would come again. But that, as they say, is a tale for another time.